Inside North Korea, daily life under a dictatorship. North Korea is one of the most secretive and tightly controlled countries in the world. In this documentary-style video, we explore the harsh realities of daily life under a powerful dictatorship. From strict government control and non-stop propaganda to limited freedom of movement and access to information, this video reveals how ordinary people live behind closed borders. Through verified reports and real-life insights, we uncover a system built on fear, obedience, and silence. This is not just a story about North Korea. It is a reminder of the true value of freedom, awareness, and truth in today's world. The Hermit Kingdom, a nation behind the veil. Imagine looking at the Earth from space at night. You see the vibrant golden glow of China to the north and the electric brilliance of South Korea to the south. But between them, there is a massive, eerie void, a black hole where millions of people live, yet not a single light shines. This isn't an empty ocean or a desert. This is North Korea, a nation of 26 million people that has effectively vanished from the modern world. While we live in an era of instant connection, this is a place where time has not just slowed down, it has been frozen by design. Welcome to the world's most successful prison state, the Hermit Kingdom. To understand this place, we must first understand its name, the Hermit Kingdom. Historically, this term was used in the 19th century to describe the Joseon dynasty, which strictly avoided outside influence to protect its culture. Today, the Kim regime has resurrected this ancient isolation, but with a terrifying modern twist. It is called the secretive nation not because they have nothing to say, but because the regime knows that information is more dangerous than a nuclear bomb. In North Korea, secrecy isn't just a policy, it's the foundation of the government's survival. If the veil is lifted, the regime falls. The physical fortress, the DMZ. The isolation begins at the borders. To the south lies the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. Don't let the name fool you. It is the most militarized strip of land on the planet. Stretching 160 miles long, this no-man's land is a nightmare of over 1 million landmines, high-voltage electric fences, and concrete walls topped with razor wire. Every few hundred meters, guard towers stand like silent giants, manned by soldiers with orders to shoot anyone, including their own comrades, who tries to cross. This isn't a border designed to keep enemies out. It is a cage designed to keep a population in. The Northern Leak, the border with China. For decades, the northern border along the Yaling and Tumen rivers was the only breathing hole for North Koreans. It was through here that smugglers brought in food and news from the outside world. But today, even that hole is being plugged. Since 2020, the regime has constructed hundreds of miles of new secondary fencing and installed high-tech surveillance cameras. The shoot-to-kill policy at the border remains in effect. The message from the leadership is clear. No one leaves and no one enters without our absolute control. The ideological cage, Juche. But physical walls are only half the story. The most unbreakable walls are the ones built inside the minds of the citizens. This is achieved through the state ideology of Juche, or self-reliance. From the moment a child learns to speak, they are taught that North Korea is a socialist paradise and the rest of the world is a hellscape of war and poverty. They are told that Americans are imperialist bastards waiting to invade, and South Koreans are slaves living in misery. By creating a constant state of fear and a siege mentality, the regime makes the people believe that their isolation is actually protection. When you are never allowed to see a map of the world or hear a foreign broadcast, your cage becomes your entire universe. The mechanics of silence.
How do they maintain this for 70 years? Through a system where silence is the only way to stay alive. There is no independent media, no internet, and no unauthorized travel between towns. In North Korea, your life is scripted before you are born. Every radio is pre-tuned to government frequencies. Every newspaper is a hymn of praise to the supreme leader. The outside world is a myth, and the truth is a crime. The cliffhanger. We have seen the walls, the wire, the mines, and the propaganda. But what happens once you pass through these barriers? How does a society function when every person is assigned a social rank at birth that dictates their food, their job, and their very worth as a human being?
The cult of personality, the deification of the Kim dynasty. What happens when a human is treated like a god? Not in a figurative sense, and not within the walls of a church, but as a matter of national law. In North Korea, the Kim family isn't just a political dynasty, they are the center of a state-mandated religion. To the outside world, it looks like a cult of personality. To the 26 million people living inside, it is the only reality they have ever known. In this world, the leaders don't just rule the land, they supposedly rule the weather, the heavens, and the very thoughts in your head. Deification, the birth of a myth. To understand this absolute devotion, we must look at how the regime rewrites reality. It began with Kim Il-sung, the great leader. After his death, he wasn't just buried, he was declared the eternal president. In North Korea, the calendar doesn't start with the birth of Christ, it starts with the birth of Kim Il-sung. The deification continued with his son, Kim Jong-il. State media claimed that when he was born on Mount Paktu, a new star appeared, and winter instantly turned into spring. Even Kim Jong-un's rise was shrouded in myth, portraying him as a prodigy of prodigies who could drive at age 3. These are not just tall tales, they are taught in schools as historical facts. When a leader is no longer seen as a man, but as a supernatural force, any failure of the state becomes the fault of the people, never the god. The watchful eyes, mandatory portraits. This devotion is physically enforced in every single North Korean home. Every household is legally required to hang the portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il on a prominent wall. But it's not just about hanging them, it's about how you treat them. These portraits must be placed high so that no one stands above the leaders. They must be perfectly centered. Most importantly, they must be spotless. The government provides a special cloth for dusting them, and this cloth cannot be used for anything else. During random inspections, if an official finds even a speck of dust on a portrait, the family can face severe punishment or even be sent to labor camps. There are verified accounts of North Koreans running back into burning houses or drowning in floods, not to save their money or belongings, but to save these portraits. Because in North Korea, the paper image of the leader is worth more than a human life. The psychology of absolute devotion. How does a human mind accept this? It begins in the cradle. Before children learn to say thank you to their parents, they are taught to say, "Thank you, respected Father Kim Jong-un." Every classroom, every factory, and every train station is a temple of propaganda. The psychology is a complex blend of fear and awe. If you don't show enough emotion during a national mourning period, you are watched. If you don't bow low enough to a bronze statue, you are questioned. Over decades, this forced performance becomes a psychological reality. When people are isolated from any other truth, the God King becomes their only source of hope, identity, and survival. To question the leader isn't just a political act, it is a terrifying sin that could condemn your entire family for generations. The architecture of faith. Across the country, there are over 40,000 research institutes of the revolutionary history, which are essentially shrines.
Massive bronze statues, some over 60 feet tall, loom over every major city. Citizens are required to visit these sites on holidays, offering flowers and bowing in total silence. This constant physical reinforcement ensures that the presence of the Kim family is felt in every waking moment. You are never alone. The great leader is always watching. The cliffhanger, forced loyalty. We see the statues, the portraits, and the tears. We see a nation that bows as one. But behind the masks of absolute devotion, there is a hidden mechanism that ranks every citizen from the moment they are born, a system that decides if you deserve to live in the glory of the capital or starve in the shadows of the mountains. If loyalty is forced by a threat to your very existence, is it still loyalty, or is it something much more calculated?
Songbun, the invisible social caste. Born a criminal. In most countries, you are told that your future depends on your hard work and talent. But imagine a world where your fate is decided years before you were even born. Imagine a society where you are judged, labeled, and punished not for your own actions, but for the choices your grandfather made decades ago. In North Korea, this is not a nightmare, it is the law. This is the Songbun system, the invisible hereditary caste system that ranks every citizen as either a loyal supporter, a suspicious bystander, or an enemy of the state. Mapping loyalty. The word Songbun literally means ingredient or background. It was established in the late 1950s by Kim Il-sung to purge potential enemies and reward the faithful. The state divided the entire population into 3 primary classes based on their family's history during the Japanese colonial period and the Korean War. At the top is the loyal class, the descendants of those who fought alongside Kim Il-sung. In the middle is the wavering class, average citizens with no strong political history. And at the bottom is the hostile class, the descendants of landlords, religious leaders, or anyone associated with South Korea. This record is kept in a secret file by the secret police. And the most terrifying part? Most North Koreans are never officially told their own rank. The cradle of inequality. Your songbun is your life's shadow. It begins at birth. If you have good songbun, you are allowed to live in the capital city of Pyongyang, attend the best universities, and eat high-quality rations. You have the right to become a member of the Workers' Party. But if you are born with bad songbun, the doors of opportunity are slammed shut before you can even walk. No matter how brilliant a student you are, you will never go to a top college. You will be assigned to back-breaking labor in remote coal mines or farms. You're essentially a second-class citizen in your own home, destined to live a life of struggle simply because of your bloodline. Marriage and social stagnation. The songbun system even controls the heart. Marriage in North Korea is rarely just about love. It is about social survival. A person from the loyal class would almost never marry someone from the hostile class, as it would instantly degrade their own status and the status of their future children. To marry down is to commit social suicide. This ensures that the classes remain separated, creating a society that is frozen in a cycle of privilege and persecution that spans generations. The unchangeable label. Can you change your songbun? In theory, almost never. While you can easily lose your status by committing a political crime, it is nearly impossible to move up. The regime believes that loyalty is in the blood. This creates a permanent underclass that is viewed with constant suspicion. This is why the regime has been able to prevent a revolution for so long. By keeping the hostile class weak,
Hungry and geographically isolated, they ensure that no organized resistance can ever form. The cliffhanger, the price of knowledge. The songbun system is the ultimate cage. It controls where you live, what you eat, and who you can love. But there is one thing even the songbun system cannot fully stop: the truth. What happens when a society built on these rigid lies is suddenly exposed to the outside world? What happens to a citizen in the hostile class realizes that the capitalist hell they were warned about is actually a world of abundance?
The Information Iron Curtain. Life without Internet. The digital island. Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that the World Wide Web has vanished. No Google, no YouTube, no social media. Not just for a day, but forever. For 26 million North Koreans, this isn't a post-apocalyptic movie. It is their everyday reality. In a world that is more connected than ever, North Korea is a digital island, a place where the flow of information is more tightly controlled than the flow of water. Welcome to the world behind the Information Iron Curtain. The myth of the Internet. If you ask a student in Pyongyang if they have internet, they might say yes. But what they're using is not the World Wide Web. It is a national intranet called Kwangmyong, meaning bright star. Kwangmyong is a closed-loop system with only a few thousand government-sanctioned websites. There is no email to anyone outside the country, no Wikipedia, and no access to global news. Every piece of information on this network is filtered, censored, and approved by the state. It is a digital cage designed to give the illusion of technology while keeping the mind firmly trapped within the regime's narrative. State-controlled media, the only voice. In North Korea, there is no such thing as independent journalism. Every television station, every radio frequency, and every newspaper is a mouthpiece for the government. All radios and TVs sold in the country are factory-modified to receive only government channels. Tuning in to a foreign station is a serious crime. The news doesn't report on global events. It reports on the supreme leader's on-the-spot guidance or fake stories of foreign countries collapsing in chaos. This constant, one-sided stream of information ensures that citizens have no way to verify the lies they are told from birth. The anti-reactionary thought law. In late 2020, the regime introduced the anti-reactionary thought law. This is one of the harshest laws in the world regarding information. Under this law, even being caught with a USB drive containing South Korean content can lead to years of hard labor. If you're caught distributing foreign media, the punishment is death. There are reports of public executions of teenagers simply for watching and sharing South Korean TV shows. The regime understands that a single K-drama can do more damage to their power than 1,000 tanks because it teaches the people to dream of a life they are not supposed to know exists. The total surveillance of devices. Modern technology in North Korea is actually used against the people. North Korean-made smartphones like the Arirang come with built-in surveillance software. The operating system, Red Star OS, automatically takes random screenshots of what the user is doing and stores them in a hidden folder that only government inspectors can access. There is no privacy, not even in the palm of your hand. The education of hate. The Information Iron Curtain doesn't just block the truth, it replaces it with a carefully crafted hatred. This blackout starts before a child even knows how to read. If the adults are controlled by laws and fear, the children are controlled by something much more subtle, the classroom. What does it do to a child's mind when their first math problem is about counting dead enemies?
Cradle to grave indoctrination, The architecture of brainwashing. Imagine a kindergarten classroom. Colorful walls, toys, and children laughing. But look closer. Instead of learning about animals or the alphabet, 5-year-olds are standing in front of a mural showing imperialist enemies being defeated. Their first songs aren't nursery rhymes, they are hymns of praise to a leader they call father. In North Korea, the government doesn't just want your obedience, it wants your soul. And the battle for your soul begins before you are old enough to understand what a country is. This is the world of cradle-to-grave indoctrination, a system where education is not a tool for growth, but a weapon for total psychological control. Kindergarten, planting the seeds of hatred. The brainwashing begins the moment a child enters the state daycare system. North Korean kindergartens are divided into 2 main rooms, the regular classroom and the research room for revolutionary history. In this sacred room, children are taught about the childhood of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. The curriculum is designed to create a siege mentality. Children are taught that North Korea is a beautiful, innocent nation surrounded by wolf-like enemies, specifically Americans and the traitorous South Korean government. Instead of simple math problems like 2 plus 2, a typical kindergarten math problem might be, if you have 3 American soldiers and you kill 2, how many American bastards are left? By merging basic education with violence and hatred, the regime ensures that the child's moral compass is aligned with the state's enemies before they even reach primary school. The transformation of history, rewriting the past. As students move into primary and secondary education, the indoctrination becomes more complex. In North Korea, history is not a record of facts, it is a work of fiction designed to justify the Kim family's rule. The biggest lie is the origin of the Korean War. While world history proves the North invaded the South in 1950, North Korean textbooks teach that the imperialist Americans invaded the North and only the genius military leadership of Kim Il-sung saved the nation. Even the laws of nature are rewritten. Students are taught that the Kim leaders are so great that they don't need to use a bathroom like normal humans, or that they can control the weather with their minds. This myth-making creates a psychological gap between the student and the leader. The leader is a god, and the student is a mere servant. The School of Surveillance, Self-Criticism Sessions. Education in North Korea isn't just about what you learn in books, it's about how you monitor yourself and others. This is where the life purification sessions, or Sanghwal Chonghwa, begin. Starting in primary school, students must participate in weekly sessions where they stand in front of their peers and confess their sins. These sins could be as minor as, I didn't study hard enough, or I was distracted during a revolutionary lecture. But the most chilling part is the requirement to criticize their classmates. A child must stand up and point out the faults of their best friend. This destroys trust from a young age. If you cannot trust your friends in school, you will grow up into an adult who will never dare to organize a protest or a revolution. The school system effectively turns every child into a miniature secret police officer. Mandatory military training in schools. By the time a student reaches secondary school, the indoctrination takes a physical form. Students are required to join the Red Youth Guards. They spend hundreds of hours in military drills, learning how to use wooden rifles and practicing bayonet charges against straw dummies dressed as American soldiers. Education is entirely secondary to political loyalty. A student could be a mathematical genius, but if their revolutionary history grade is low, they're considered a failure. This ensures that the most loyal and brainwashed individuals are the ones who rise to positions of power,
while the freethinkers are filtered out and sent to labor camps or low-ranking jobs. The totalitarian echo chamber. This education doesn't end with graduation. It follows a North Korean into the factory, the farm, and the army. Every workplace has study sessions where workers must memorize the leader's latest speeches. The regime uses a technique called constant repetition. When you hear the same lie 10,000 times from your teacher, your parents, the radio, the posters on the street, and your boss, it eventually becomes your only reality. There is no outside perspective to challenge the narrative. The information iron curtain we discussed in the last episode ensures that the lies taught in school are never contradicted by the truth from the world. The visible contrast. We have seen how the mind is caged from childhood. But what does this look like in reality? How does this brainwashing manifest in the physical world? If you were to walk through the streets of the capital, you would see a city of monuments and neon lights. But if you were to travel just 50 miles outside that city, you would find a world of starvation and darkness.
Pyongyang versus the countryside, a tale of two realities. The city of lights and the sea of darkness. If you look at North Korea from a satellite at night, you will see a strange phenomenon. A single, tiny dot of light glows brilliantly in the darkness, while the rest of the country looks like an empty ocean. That single dot is Pyongyang. But don't be fooled by its neon lights or its skyscrapers. Pyongyang is not North Korea. It is a stage, a carefully constructed showcase designed to hide a nation that is starving in the shadows. In this episode, we reveal the brutal divide between the elite few and the forgotten millions. Pyongyang, the forbidden paradise. Pyongyang is often called the Jerusalem of the East, but today it serves a different purpose. It is the playground for the loyal elite. Only the most faithful citizens, those with the highest songbun, are allowed to live here. In Pyongyang, you will see luxury high-rises, broad boulevards, and even modern amenities like amusement parks and pizza parlors. The people here dress in colorful clothes, carry smartphones, and have access to consistent electricity. But this paradise is an illusion. It exists solely to impress foreign diplomats and to reward the regime's most loyal supporters. If you live in Pyongyang, you are a chosen one. But even for the chosen, this privilege can be revoked in a heartbeat if their loyalty is questioned. The countryside, life in the Dark Ages. The moment you cross the invisible boundary out of Pyongyang, the 21st century disappears. The paved roads turn into dirt tracks. The skyscrapers are replaced by crumbling concrete apartments or mud huts. This is where the real North Korea lives, and it is a world of crushing poverty. While Pyongyang glows, the provinces suffer from chronic electricity shortages. Most rural homes receive power for only an hour or two a day, and during the winter, none at all. People heat their homes by burning wood or dried dung. There are no tractors. Instead, you will see humans and oxen pulling plows through the dirt. Water is fetched from rivers in buckets. In the countryside, survival is not a given. It is a daily battle against the elements and a failed state. A nation of internal borders. Perhaps the most shocking reality for an outsider is that North Koreans are prisoners within their own borders. In most countries, you can buy a bus ticket and visit another city. In North Korea, this is a crime. Every road connecting two towns is blocked by military checkpoints. To travel from one village to the next, a citizen must obtain a travel permit from their local authorities and their workplace. These permits are incredibly difficult to get and are often only granted for funerals or official business. Why such control?
The regime knows that if people from the poor provinces were allowed to see the luxury of Pyongyang, it would cause resentment. And if people from Pyongyang saw the starvation in the countryside, the propaganda of a socialist paradise would crumble. By restricting movement, the regime keeps the population divided, isolated, and easier to control. The show and the reality. The regime goes to extreme lengths to maintain this deception. Near the DMZ border, they built Jangmadang, a town often called Peace Village by the North, but known by the world as Propaganda Village. It features bright blue buildings and a massive flagpole. From a distance, it looks like a thriving community. However, observation through telescopes reveal that the buildings are empty shells with no floors or internal walls. Lights are turned on and off by timers to simulate life. This is the perfect metaphor for the North Korean state, a beautiful facade built over a hollow, rotting core. The struggle for bread. In the provinces, the state-run rationing system has largely collapsed. While the elites in Pyongyang shop at department stores stocked with imported goods, rural citizens rely on Jangmadang, illegal or semi-legal black markets. Here, the hidden reality is most visible. Children, known as kotchebi, or fluttering swallows, wander these markets searching for food scraps. These are the orphans of North Korea's poverty, living proof that the regime cares more about its nuclear missiles than its most vulnerable citizens. The gap between a child eating a burger in a Pyongyang cafe and a kotchebi begging for a grain of rice is the true face of North Korean inequality. We have seen the physical divide between the rich and the poor, the city and the dirt. But how does the regime prevent a revolution in these dark provinces? How do they keep millions of hungry people from rising up? The answer lies in a system of surveillance so deep that it reaches into your very living room. In North Korea, you are never alone, not even with your own family.
Total surveillance, the eyes of the state. The walls have ears. In the outside world, your home is your sanctuary. It's the one place where you can close the door and speak your mind. But in North Korea, the door is never truly closed. There is an old Korean proverb that the regime has turned into a terrifying reality. Birds hear the words you speak by day, and rats hear the words you speak by night. In this nation, you don't just fear the police or the cameras on the street. You fear your neighbor, your friend, and sometimes even your own child. Welcome to the world of total surveillance, a society where privacy is considered a crime against the state. The Inminban, the neighborhood watch. The most effective tool of the North Korean state isn't high-tech satellites. It is a human network called the Inminban. These are local neighborhood watch units consisting of 20 to 40 households. Every single North Korean belongs to one. At the head of each unit is the Inminban Jang, usually a middle-aged woman appointed by the state. She is the eyes of the state. She has the legal right to enter any home in her unit at any time without a warrant. She knows how many spoons you have in your kitchen, what you talked about at dinner, and who visited your house last night. If an unauthorized guest stays over, or if a family is caught watching a smuggled movie, it is the Inminban Jang who reports them to the secret police. The culture of mutual espionage. The genius and the horror of this system is that it turns the entire population into informants. This is a policy of mutual espionage. The regime forces neighbors to watch one another because they know that if a neighbor fails to report a crime, they too will be punished for failing to be vigilant. This creates a society of organized distrust. You can drink with a friend for 20 years, but you will never tell them your true feelings about the supreme leader.
Why? Because you know that if they are caught for something else, they might trade your secret for their own safety. In North Korea, the safest person to talk to is no one.
The secret police, the Boiwoo. Beyond the neighborhood watch lies the dreaded Ministry of State Security, known as the Boiwoo. This is the secret police force responsible for finding political criminals. They don't wear uniforms. They are the shoppers in the market, the workers in the factory, and the students in the university. The Boiwoo utilizes wiretapping on a massive scale. While only the elite have phones, those phones are monitored 24/7. Even in public parks or on trains, hidden microphones are common. The goal isn't just to catch people, it is to make everyone feel like they are being watched at all times. This constant gaze of the state leads to a psychological phenomenon where people begin to self-censor their own thoughts. The psychological impact, the frozen mind. Living under total surveillance for decades does something profound to the human psyche. It creates a mask. North Koreans learn from a very young age to have two faces, the public face of absolute loyalty and the private face of silent survival. This leads to a chilling reality where even in the privacy of their own homes, families often communicate in whispers or through hand gestures. They turn up the volume of the state radio to drown out their private conversations. The psychological trauma is immense, a life lived in a state of permanent paranoia. When you cannot trust the people you love, the social fabric of the nation is destroyed, leaving only the individual and the state. The digital panopticon. In recent years, surveillance has gone digital. North Korea has been importing facial recognition technology and sophisticated CCTV systems from China. They have also developed software that tracks every click on the domestic intranet and records every screenshot on state-issued smartphones. The physical walls of the Inminban are now being reinforced by a digital cage that is even harder to escape. The cliffhanger, the cost of a mistake. But what happens when the surveillance works? What happens when a neighbor whispers a secret or a hidden microphone catches a sigh of frustration? In North Korea, the punishment for a single wrong word doesn't just fall on the person who spoke it. The regime has a rule that is so cruel it defies modern human understanding. A rule that ensures that if you fail, your children and your grandchildren will pay the price with their lives. Collective punishment, the 3 generations rule. The hook, a sin of the blood. Imagine you're a child, only 10 years old. One night, soldiers burst into your home, drag you and your parents out, and throw you into a truck. You haven't done anything wrong. You've never even spoken a word against the government. But you are told you are a criminal. Why? Because your grandfather, a man you barely remember, once made a joke about the supreme leader. In North Korea, crime is not an individual act, it is a genetic defect. Welcome to the 3 generations of punishment, a system where the innocent pay for the sins of their ancestors with their lives. The logic of cruelty, guilt by association. The principle is known as yeonjwaje, or guilt by association. It was officially established by Kim Il-sung in the 1950s, who famously stated, "Seedlings of factionalists or class enemies, whoever they are, must be eliminated through 3 generations." The regime believes that the root of treason must be pulled out completely. If a man is found guilty of a political crime, his parents, his wife, and his children, and even his grandchildren born after his arrest, are all considered criminals. The logic is as simple as it is terrifying. If you punish the whole family, you ensure that no one will ever dare to rebel, because their actions will destroy everyone they love. The shadow world.
The Kwan-Lee-So. Where do these families go? They disappear into the Kwan-Lee-So, the political prison camps. These are vast, hidden complexes in the remote mountains, some larger than major cities. They do not appear on official North Korean maps, but satellite imagery reveals their horrific scale. In these camps, there are no trials, no lawyers, and no release dates. People are sent there to be worked to death. They are forced into dangerous mining or logging projects for 12 to 15 hours a day, often with no tools but their bare hands. In the eyes of the state, the prisoners in Kwan-Lee-So are no longer humans. They are beasts to be utilized until they break. Life and death behind the wire. Survival in the Kwan-Lee-So is a miracle. The daily ration is often just a handful of corn or a watery salt soup. This leads to such extreme hunger that prisoners have been reported to eat rats, frogs, or even undigested grains found in animal waste just to stay alive. Public executions are common to maintain order. Children born inside these camps grow up seeing executions as a normal part of life. They have never seen a television, never eaten a piece of candy, and don't even know why they are being punished. They are born into a cage, live in a cage, and eventually die in a cage, all for a crime committed by a relative before they were born. The weapon of fear. The 3 generations rule is the ultimate psychological anchor for the regime. It turns every citizen into their own jailer. Even if a North Korean wants to defect or speak out, they stop because they know the Boiweebu, the secret police, will come for their elderly mother or their infant son. It is a hostage situation on a national scale. The regime doesn't just control you through your fear of death, it controls you through your love for your family. Fact-checking the darkness. International organizations like the UN and Amnesty International have collected hundreds of testimonies from the few survivors who managed to escape. These reports confirm that at any given time, between 80,000 and 120,000 people are held in these political camps. The existence of these camps is a constant reminder that in North Korea, the paradise built by the Kim family is sustained by the blood and misery of those hidden in the mountains. The engine of power. The camps, the surveillance, and the indoctrination, all of these require massive resources. How does a nation that is so broken and poor continue to maintain such a massive military and such a sophisticated system of control? How does the regime survive when its people are starving? The answer lies in a policy that puts guns before bread and nuclear missiles before human lives.
The survival of the regime, power, military, and nukes. Guns before bread. In a world where nations compete through economic growth, technology, and trade, North Korea has chosen a different path, the path of the sword. It is a nation that cannot feed its own people, yet it possesses some of the most destructive weapons known to mankind. How does a bankrupt regime maintain one of the world's largest standing armies? The answer lies in a single cold-blooded doctrine that defines everything in North Korea: Songun, or military first. In this episode, we explore how the regime uses fear, soldiers, and nuclear fire to ensure its survival against all odds. The military first policy. Established by Kim Jong-il in the 1990s during a period of catastrophic famine, the Songun policy changed the DNA of the nation. It declared that the Korean People's Army, KPA, is the heart of the state. In North Korea, the military comes first, before education, before healthcare, and even before food.
With over 1.2 million active duty soldiers, North Korea is the most militarized society on Earth. Every man is required to serve for nearly a decade, and women are now also being conscripted. By putting a rifle in the hands of its youth, the regime does two things. It ensures it has a massive force to suppress any internal rebellion, and it creates a direct line of loyalty to the supreme leader. Buying loyalty, the elite and the army. The survival of the Kim family depends on the loyalty of the generals. While the rest of the country starves, the military elite live in luxury. They are given the best apartments, imported cars, and access to special hospitals. This is a calculated loyalty for luxury trade. Kim Jong-un knows that as long as the army is fed and the generals are rewarded, his throne is safe. The military isn't just a defense force, it is the regime's private security guard, kept content while the masses suffer. The nuclear shield, a tool for survival. Why does a poor country spend billions on nuclear missiles? For the Kim regime, nuclear weapons are not about starting a war, they are about insurance. They have watched other dictatorships fall and believe that without a nuclear deterrent, they would suffer the same fate. These weapons serve a dual purpose: international leverage. By threatening the world with nuclear fire, the regime forces powerful nations to the negotiating table, often extracting food aid or sanctions relief. Internal pride. State media portrays these missiles as proof of the great leader's genius. It tells the hungry citizens, we may have no food, but the world fears us. We are a powerful nation. This false sense of national pride is a powerful drug that helps numb the pain of poverty. The cost of the mushroom cloud. The price of these weapons is paid by the ordinary North Korean citizen. Every dollar spent on an intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, is a dollar taken away from agriculture or infrastructure. Experts estimate that a single missile test could fund the country's food needs for an entire year. But to the regime, the people are expendable, the missiles are not. The nuclear program is the ultimate wall, protecting the Kim family from both foreign intervention and internal collapse. Cyber warfare, the new frontier. The regime's survival also depends on its digital soldiers. North Korea has developed a sophisticated army of hackers known as the Lazarus Group. Since they cannot participate in the global economy, they steal from it. Through bank heists, cryptocurrency theft, and ransomware, these hackers funnel hundreds of millions of dollars directly into the regime's weapons program. It is a modern-day pirate state, using the internet to fund a kingdom that doesn't even have electricity. The cracks in the wall. We have seen the guns, the nukes, and the hackers. The regime seems invincible, protected by a fortress of fear. But no wall is perfect. In the shadows of the markets, a new generation is rising, one that has tasted foreign goods and seen the lies of the state. How does a government that controls everything react when its people start to trade in secret? What happens when capitalism begins to breathe inside a communist dictatorship? In our next episode, we look at the forbidden markets and the rise of the Jangmadang generation.
The Jangmadang generation, the rise of black markets. Capitalism in a communist cage. In a country where private property is officially forbidden and the state is supposed to provide everything, a strange irony has emerged. Deep in the alleyways and hidden corners of North Korean towns, a forbidden economy is breathing. People are buying and selling, not for profit, but for survival. This is the world of the Jangmadang, the black markets.
Here, the rigid rules of the regime meet the unstoppable force of human necessity. In this episode, we explore how a failed state gave birth to a secret market and how a new generation is using it to look beyond the information iron curtain. The collapse, from rations to markets. For decades, North Koreans relied on the Public Distribution System, or PDS, a state-run rationing program that provided food, clothing, and daily essentials. But in the 1990s, during a catastrophic period known as the Arduous March, the system collapsed. Millions starved. When the state failed to provide even a handful of grain, the people realized a terrifying truth. If they waited for the government, they would die. To survive, ordinary citizens, mostly women, started selling whatever they could find: homegrown vegetables, old clothes, or scrap metal. These small stalls grew into massive unofficial markets called Jangmadang. Today, experts estimate that up to 80% of North Koreans depend on these markets for their daily survival. The regime, unable to feed its people, has been forced to look the other way, creating a gray zone where capitalism exists in the heart of a dictatorship. The merchants of survival. The heroes of this secret economy are the women. While men are required to show up at their state-assigned jobs, even if there is no work or pay, the women have more freedom to move. They have become the primary breadwinners, traveling between towns, bribing soldiers at checkpoints, and risking everything to bring goods from the Chinese border. These women are not just traders, they are the lifeline of a nation. They have learned that money, not ideology, is what keeps their children alive. The Jangmadang generation. The rise of these markets has birthed a new demographic, the Jangmadang generation. These are the young people born during or after the famine of the 90s. Unlike their parents, they have no memory of the state actually providing for them. They don't feel the same debt of gratitude to the Kim family. For this generation, the markets are not just about food, they're about culture. Under the counter, alongside sacks of rice, you will find forbidden fruits, USB sticks filled with K-dramas, Hollywood movies, and South Korean pop music. They're wearing smuggled skinny jeans under their traditional coats and using slang words they heard in a smuggled drama. Their world is no longer just the gray propaganda of Pyongyang. It is a world filled with the colors of the outside world. Cracking the ideological foundation. The Jangmadang is the regime's biggest nightmare. Why? Because it fosters independence. When a citizen realizes they can feed themselves through their own hard work, the state's power of life and death over them weakens. Moreover, the smuggled goods are truth bombs. When a young North Korean sees a South Korean drama showing a middle-class family throwing away leftovers, it shatters the lie that South Korea is a land of beggars. This awareness is a slow-acting poison to the regime's propaganda. The Jangmadang generation is learning to think for themselves, one smuggled USB stick at a time. The regime's counterattack. The government is not blind to this threat. They occasionally launch crackdowns, seizing goods and arresting traders. They've introduced new laws to punish those caught with reactionary media. Yet they cannot shut down the markets completely without causing a mass revolt. It's a dangerous cat-and-mouse game. The regime tries to tax and control the markets, while the people find new, clever ways to hide their trades and their thoughts. The ultimate escape. The markets have given the people a taste of freedom, but for some, a taste is not enough. Once you realize the world is bigger and brighter than the cage you were born in, the desire to leave becomes overwhelming. But how do you escape a country that is a prison? How do you cross a border where soldiers have orders to shoot on sight?
The Great Escape, the dangerous path to defection. A one-way ticket. For most of us, a journey begins with a suitcase and a passport. But for a North Korean defector, it begins with a final look at their sleeping family, a deep breath, and the knowledge that if they fail, they will never see the sunrise again. There is no return. There is no plan B. To escape North Korea is to commit the ultimate crime against the state, a crime punishable by death. In this episode, we follow the harrowing path of those who risk everything for a single breath of freedom. The first step, crossing the river. The journey usually begins at the northern border, along the Yalu or Tumen rivers that separate North Korea from China. Escaping through the south is impossible due to the millions of landmines in the DMZ. The northern border is the only hope. Defectors wait for a moonless night or a frozen winter evening. They must dodge searchlights, avoid rattling the barbed wire, and move silently past guards with shoot-to-kill orders. Bribing a guard is often the only way, but even then, betrayal is common. Once they step onto Chinese soil, they are not safe. Their nightmare has only just begun. The hidden terror in China. China does not recognize North Koreans as refugees. It views them as illegal economic migrants. According to a treaty with Pyongyang, China is obligated to arrest and forcibly return any North Korean they find. Because of this, defectors in China live like ghosts. They cannot take a bus, stay in a hotel, or use a phone. Many women fall into the hands of human traffickers, sold into forced marriages or the sex trade in rural China. They endure years of abuse in silence, knowing that if they go to the police, they will be sent back to a North Korean prison camp. This is the hidden tragedy of the escape, a journey into another form of slavery. The Underground Railroad to Southeast Asia. To reach freedom, defectors must travel thousands of miles across China to reach a third country, usually Laos or Thailand. This is a modern-day underground railroad. With the help of secret Christian missionary networks or professional brokers, they hide in the shadows of trains or cramped vans. The final stretch often involves trekking through thick mosquito-infested jungles and crossing the Mekong River. One mistake, one suspicious look from a local official, and the entire journey collapses. The goal is to reach the South Korean embassy in a neutral country where they can finally claim their right to asylum. The tragedy of forced repatriation. The haunting fear of every defector is repatriation. When China catches and sends defectors back, they are handed over to the Boibu, the secret police. They are subjected to brutal interrogations to find out who helped them and if they had contact with South Koreans or Christians. The punishment for betraying the fatherland is severe, years of torture and labor camps, or for those who are trying to reach South Korea, public execution. The regime uses these returnees as a bloody example to terrify anyone else who dreams of leaving. The courage to be free. Despite the walls, the mines, the traffickers, and the threat of execution, thousands have made it. Why do they do it? It isn't just for food or money. It is for the right to think, the right to speak, and the right to own their own lives. These defectors are the bravest people on the planet. They carry the trauma of their escape forever, but they also carry the truth. Their testimonies are the only reason the world knows what is truly happening behind the closed borders of the Hermit Kingdom. What lies ahead? The escape is over. The defector has reached the bright lights of Seoul or the freedom of the West. But does the story end there? Can a mind that has been brainwashed and traumatized for decades ever truly be free? Is it possible to integrate into a modern world when you have spent your life in a 1950s dictatorship?
The resilience of the human spirit, the final truth. A soul that cannot be chained. We have seen the walls of wire, the shadows of the secret police, and the darkness that covers an entire nation.
It is easy to look at North Korea and see only a machine of oppression, a system designed to crush the individual until nothing remains. But behind the propaganda, the parades, and the poverty, there is something the regime has never been able to kill: the human spirit. After 12 episodes of darkness, we find ourselves asking, how do people survive, love, and dream in a place where dreaming is a crime? The resilience of the forgotten. The North Korean people are not the regime. They are mothers who risk labor camps to find a handful of rice for their children. They are students who whisper forbidden questions in the dark. They are the brave souls who risk the river and the jungle just to hear the word freedom. Their resilience is not loud. It is a quiet, steady flame. It is seen in the Jangmadang markets, where capitalism grows in the cracks of a failed ideology. It is seen in the defectors, who, after being repatriated and tortured, try to escape again and again. You can control a person's movements, you can monitor their speech, but you can never fully colonize their mind. The ethical duty of the world. Why does it matter that we tell these stories? Why must we look behind the curtain? Because silence is the dictator's greatest ally. For 70 years, the Kim dynasty has thrived on the world's indifference. By sharing the truth, by watching, listening, and documenting, we break the isolation that the regime works so hard to maintain. Every time a story is told, the information iron curtain gets a little thinner. We owe it to the 26 million people living in the dark to be their voice when they are forced to be silent. The inevitable dawn. History has shown us that no wall stands forever. From the Berlin Wall to the fallen empires of the past, systems built on fear eventually crumble under the weight of their own lies. Change in North Korea may not come from an outside invasion. It is growing from within. It is growing in the hearts of a new generation that has seen the truth on a smuggled USB stick. It is growing in the hearts of soldiers who are tired of being hungry. The regime can delay the dawn, but they cannot stop the sun from rising. Final reflection. The true value of freedom. As we conclude this journey, look at your own life. Your ability to speak, to travel, to search the internet, and to choose your own path. For us, these are simple rights. For a North Korean, they are dreams worth dying for. North Korea is a reminder to the modern world that freedom is not a gift, it is a responsibility. Awareness is our first step towards action. This is not just a story about a country far away. It is a story about the endurance of humanity. One day, the trains will run freely between Pyongyang and Seoul. One day, the DMZ will be a garden instead of a minefield. And one day, the people of North Korea will walk into the light, not as subjects of a dynasty, but as masters of their own destiny. Until that day, we must continue to watch. We must continue to remember. Because as long as the truth is told, the hope for freedom will never die.